The UN says daily 5-hour pauses in fighting in Syria are not enough to bring in aid or evacuate citizens. Ambulances and paramedics are ready to greet civilians fleeing the eastern suburbs of Damascus, but no humanitarian aid has gone in. Look at that. No civilians have left the area. Fighting has raged for weeks between the Syrian army, backed by Russia, and rebels. The UN says the situation has become worse since the daily ceasefires. And the UN says that North Korea is supplying Syria with ballistic missiles and chemical weapons parts. Investigators say they found more than 40 shipments between North Korea and Syria in violation of UN sanctions. The U.S. and other Western nations have accused Syria of using chemical weapons, considered a war crime, against rebel-controlled areas in Damascus. Joining us now is Blaise Misztal, Director of National Security at the Bipartisan Policy Center. Welcome back to the program.
Good to be with you, Lauren.
North Korea and Syria have been working together for decades behind the scenes, but in 2013, Syria signed a policy that they aren't going to produce chemical weapons anymore. They aren't going to use them. 192 other countries did that. I guess they changed their mind?
Well, clearly they felt that there was little repercussions to them using this. The context for that 2013 agreement was getting the Obama administration to agree not to attack them. And clearly they felt that this gave them a free pass to continue doing this with North Korean help.
This has been a problem for a long time. The civil war in Syria is in its 7th year. The Trump administration made a decision not to back rebels so that they are out of Syria when it comes to backing rebels. Was that a good idea? We're still seeing chemical weapons attacks.
Yeah, well, Syria is complicated because there's so many different conflicts going on. There was the fight against ISIS, which the United States was all in on, and President Trump really persevered on. And then there was the fight against Assad, and we said that
the president of Syria.
The president of Syria, who's backed by Iran and by Russia, and now we know North Korea. And President Trump and President Obama informed us that that's not really our fight. The future of Syria is not really what we're interested in. But we see that it's not just about Syria. It's about these international criminal networks between Syria and North Korea, Iran, Russia. It's really about the building of this really anti-American group.
So when there was a chemical weapons attack in Syria last April, the Trump administration, or Donald Trump, President Trump, sent in cruise missiles and bombed. Is that a strategy that's effective?
Well, clearly it was an attempt to send a message, don't do this again or else. But Assad, perhaps at the urging of Iran and Russia, decided to test that. He called our bluff, and he has used chemical weapons multiple times since then. He's committed multiple atrocities against civilians, as we just saw. And there hasn't been a response, so they were right. It was a one and done deal for President Trump thus far, at least.
So the UN is not able to enforce a ceasefire. They've asked for a 30-day ceasefire in Syria. And the Russians have basically said, nah, we'll give you 5 hours. They gave them 5 hours yesterday, and we saw the video. They couldn't get out of Syria. Nobody was coming out. Why?
Well, I think the short answer is there's nowhere to go. We've seen these sorts of deals before where they say, we're going to evacuate the city, we're going to send you somewhere safe, and the civilians leave, they go to a different place, and they just end up getting bombed again because there is no international will to end this conflict and to really stop the atrocities that are happening in Syria at the hands of the Syrians, Russians, and Iranians.
So the UN can't do anything. The U.S. is hands off. Pope Francis is asking for prayers. Will the Vatican's influence have any bearing on this?
Well, perhaps I think what this report actually shows us is there's things that can be done that don't require the U.S. sending tens of thousands of troops to Syria, because I think that's what everyone is afraid of. There are shipments between North Korea and Syria. Those can be interdicted at sea. Those can be cut off and keep Syria from getting chemical weapons. Iran is shipping weapons and people by air from Iran into Syria. Those planes could be interdicted to keep those people and those guns from getting to Syria. So there are things that can be done if we're willing to do them that don't require invading Syria. And hopefully with calls like Pope Francis's, some international will be built to do that.
Blaise Misztal, Director of National Security at the Bipartisan Policy Center. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Lauren.